Greetings to you all. I welcome you to the sixth edition of Fortnightly Symposium of In Tandem Research Club. Today's topic is on disability studies, and I'm much delighted to welcome you all to today's symposium on disability studies. I wholeheartedly welcome our chairperson for today's session, Dr. J.S. Jehangir, Assistant Professor and Head, Department of English, Iqbal College, Thiruvananthapuram. I hearty welcome, sir. I extend a word of welcome to paper presenters, Ms. Abisha Magdalene, Research Scholar, Department of English, Queen Mary's College, and Mr. Bhuvanesh Kumar, Research Scholar, Department of English, Madras Christian College. I welcome Dr. Maria Preeti Srinivasan, HOD, Department of English, and all the faculty members of the department to today's session. I also welcome all the members of the In Tandem Research Club. I would like to share a few words about disability studies. The study of English literature has since the 70s undergone a radical change. While literariness continues to fascinate us as readers because what is said becomes effective because of the way it is said, the diction and the imaginative ways of presenting make the difference. However, the focus has shifted from the literary artists to voices. As the saying goes, there is a place under the sun for everyone. Representation plays a very important role in the new dimension of literary studies, and that is why literature is now part of studies, Dalit studies or Indian studies, for instance. This dimension of representation foregrounds the fact that literature is as much about the political as it is about the aesthetic. Literature is about voices, voices of the immigrants, voices of the people of color, voices of the displaced, disenfranchised. Isn't literature about truth and beauty? Has it changed? It hasn't. It continues to be about truth and beauty, but with the emphasis on celebrating difference. Truth and beauty are more rooted in reality than being ethereal and transcendental. One of the realities we engage with is the reality of the society where differently able people have their rights. Their voice must be heard and the difference must be celebrated. On this note, I request Chairperson Dr. J.S. Jehangir to take over the session.
Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful words. Most respected Dr. Preeti Madam, the paper presenters who are presenting their research journals or research papers, sorry, in the research area disability studies. I would like to welcome Abisha Magdalene, who is a MPhil research scholar working on challenging social exclusion and inequality, analyzing the impact of disability in Malini Chip's One Little Finger and Preeti Monga's The Other Senses for Mine. So I would welcome Abisha for her paper to be presented before this erudite audience. Abisha, please.
Yes, sir. So first, I would like to start with the definition given by the American Disability Act of given by the American Disability Act of 1990. So it defines disability not just as a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities or a record of such impairment, but also as being regarded. Uh, can you see the screen? Is it visible?
No, Abhisha.
Wait a second. So my topic is objectification of the differently abled in the society. I hope it is seen now. Hello? Can you all
Yes,
see
it's
my
visible now.
screen?
It's visible now. It's visible
Okay,
now.
thank you. So, disability studies. American Disability Acts of 1990 has given a definition for disability. So, I would like to read it. A physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities, or a record of such impairment, but also as being regarded as having such an impairment. So, the last part of the definition acknowledges the importance of social attitudes and perspectives in forming disability. Disability studies is an academic discipline that examines the meaning, nature, and consequences of disability. Initially, it focused on the division between impairment and disability. So, I would like to differentiate between impairment and disability. So, what is disability? It usually refers to difficulty in carrying out tasks or activities of a daily life. For example, like brushing the teeth, or walking, something like that, a daily activities. He or she can't take care of himself or herself. So it deals with the functional limitation. One cannot do the basic things on their own. Next, impairment. It is any loss of normal or mental abilities. For example, people who are visually impaired, or it is because of the disease or illness, or because of injury. Disability studies courses include work in disability history, legislation, policy, ethics, and arts. Disability studies emerged in the 1980s, primarily in the US, the UK, and Canada. The first US Disability Studies program emerged in 1994 at Sinclair University. The first edition of the Disability Studies Reader, one of the first collections of academic paper related to disability studies, was published in 1997. The field grew rapidly over the next 10 years. In 2005, the Modern Language Association established disability studies as a division of study. So this is a explanation about disability studies. So now let's go to why disability studies. So why are we learning it as a course? To dissolve cognitive barriers. It is also known as intellectual ability. The second point is study disability as a form of human diversity. For this I would like to give an example. Newton was having two cats, one mother cat and a kitten. He wanted those cats to enter his room easily. So what he did was he created two holes, one big hole for the mother cat to enter and a small hole for the kitten to enter. Surprisingly, the mother cat entered through the big hole, but this small kitten, it went through the small hole. It didn't go to the small hole; it came to the big hole. So like that, he started to think. So what I would like to say is, it's something the disability sector calls universal design. We have to design things in such a way that disabled people doesn't feel special. And the next is move beyond disability rights to disability culture. So one of the core values of disability culture is that accepting the differences, should treat everyone as equal. And the next, replace compassion with respect. We see, we are ready to help people. We are ready to help people in roads when we see who are visually impaired, who are not able to walk or something like that. But if we sit next to the person in a public dais or somewhere else, we are not ready to see them as equals. We show sympathy when we see them outside, but when we are next to them, we are not ready to respect them. They don't need our compassion or sympathy, but they need our respect. And the next is universal access means all of us. For this, I would like to talk about Malini Chip's One Little Finger. In that, she says she dislikes coming to India. She studied in London, but for holidays she dislikes coming to India because here there is no universal access. For example, if she wants to board a bus, it is not impossible here in India, but there transport access is given to all the people, and the people don't look her differently. But here in India, they saw her different because just because she was having a wheelchair. So this is about why disability studies. And the next, what is ableism? It is a discrimination or prejudice against individuals with disabilities. So it what it does is it devalues and limits the potential of a disabled people. It also creates a inferiority complex within them. It creates an inferior value to people who have developmental or emotional, physical, or psychiatric disabilities. Discrimination of in favor of able-bodied people. What is an ableist? An ableist is a person who conforms to and implements the ableism ideology within their life and action. So, ableism is a systematic exclusion and oppression of people with disability, often expressed and reinforced through language. Some common example I would like to say is they use words like lame, dumb, retarded, blind, deaf, idiot, psycho, etc. These words will hurt anybody. So, such words should not be used, and an ableist an ableist will use such words with or without knowing. These terms can be associated with a person's identity. For example, if a person is having a hunchback, they call them a cripple, something like that. So such words will really hurt the people, really hurt that person who is suffering with that disability or their challenges, and because of that, it can be insulting for them. When we call them by names, it will naturally hurt any person, right? So when we call them lame, retarded, dumb, it will insult them. It is like insulting them. Similinton in claiming disability, knowledge and identity, she talks about naming oppression and naming the group. She constantly in this book she demonstrates how society and academia take a narrow devaluing construction of disability. Sometimes an ableist is unaware, so when some people intentionally use such words, but sometimes they use these words unintentionally because of society's conditioning that disability is less or different. Inspiration point. This word was coined by Stella Jane Young. She is an Australian comedian, journalist, and disability rights activist. Inspiration porn. It is where abled people use pictures of disabled people to explain how inspirational they are simply for existing, or use it to guilt able people into trying harder, because if a disabled people can brush their teeth on their own, then surely anybody can do anything. So what I'm trying to say is that if there is a girl who's not having a hand and is painting with a mouth, we all see her and think this girl is not having a hand, but still she's painting with her mouth. We feel inspirational, but it becomes inspirational porn. Actually, what she is doing is she is capable of painting with her mouth. She is using the maximum capacity of her body. There's nothing to feel inspirational or motivational just because she is painting with a mouth. Actually it demeans. So when we see them as inspiration, what we are actually doing is actually it demeans the disabled community. And it it definitely it is it definitely it will definitely create a harmful stereotype in the society. We need society to reframe our understanding of disability to one that is people who are capable with appropriate adaptation and modification if required. So Young also explains that inspiration porn purposely diverts away from understanding disabled in a realistic and humanized way. Inspiration porn is thought to display disability as exceptional when performing ordinary tasks because society associated being disabled as being incapable. Inspiration porn suggests that the disabled community should or must conform to what society thinks is normal behavior or ability. So, of course, some people's disability prevent them from doing certain things, but the appearance of disability or specific diagnosis does not determine what one's ability may be. Mm. Another point that must be considered is that relentlessly repeated stories of admirable, charming, high achieving disabled people tend to create misplaced pressures on other disabled people to behave in certain ways and achieve certain markers of success. It's unrealistic and unfair. So what I would like to say is there are some disabled people who achieve certain things, even after having a disability they achieve certain things. And when the other disabled people see this, they feel very inferior. So it is not realistic. Even if they achieve certain things in life, it is not realistic and it is not going to be fair. Next, disability in literature. Many literary critics in disability studies examine the ways novels and other public spaces reinforce concept about normal individuals. Stories have been invested with disabled or deformed characters since the origin of literature, be it oral or written, mythologies or fantasies, folk or fiction. For example, Richard III will be having a hunchback, as we all know. Then Mad Woman in the Attic, she is a mad woman, retarded. We shouldn't use the word retarded. And Mashweta, she had a skin disease called vitiligo, written by Sudhamurthy. First person disability narratives in literature. Disability has often been represented in such metaphorical terms that it can seem almost invisible. Literature can mirror and perpetuate those social processes by which people with disabilities are marginalized and excluded. So writing from within first person disability perspectives it is not very contemporary. Earlier itself people started writing like that. So people with disabilities have always written about them. So why do they write about them? It is because there's a simple logic behind this. Mostly the people with disabilities, they don't speak with normal people like how we speak with people whom we see outside or something like that. Those people will never speak openly with the other people. So naturally what they'll do, they'll start writing on their own, and that's how so many autobiographies emerged. For example, Milton's On His Blindness. Relevance of disability studies in literature. Literary representations of disability have contemporary relevance as they enable physically or mentally impaired people to integrate with the mainstream society and to establish their equality and enhance their self-esteem. It is therefore worthy of future research. Things we need to stop saying to the disability community. You are so brave and inspiring. Are you stupid? Stop acting autistic. It isn't that hard. You don't look deaf. Can you have sex? You you are way too open about your disability. What's wrong with you? What's your life expectancy? So, the only disability in life is a bad attitude. Scott Hamilton. I would like to present a small video. Is the video audible?
I doubt. I doubt.
It's not audible to me.
Yes, ma'am, it's
I
not
think that it's
audible.
not audible. Yes.
It's a video of Stella Young describing what is inspirational porn. Ma'am, I think I can. Ma'am,
You can just
can.
summarize what is.
Ma'am, I think I can present. Sir, I think I can present.
Okay, okay. Continue. You can continue. You can continue.
Yeah, yes, sir.
You're on your WhatsApp, I think.
Yes, ma'am.
You're
Yes.
screening your WhatsApp.
Yes, ma'am. I have asked my friend to share the screen for me.
If there is some technical hitch, you can go to the next part.
Sir, it's over, sir. Yeah, yeah. Sir, now I think the video is seen.
Yes, you can hear. We can hear also.
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, I grew up in a very small country town in Victoria. I had a very normal, low-key kind of upbringing. I went to school, I hung out with my friends, I fought with my younger sisters. It's all very normal. And when I was 15, a member of my local community approached my parents and wanted to nominate me for a Community Achievement Award. And my parents said, that's really nice, but there's kind of one glaring problem with that. She hasn't actually achieved anything. Yeah. And they were right. I went to school, I got good marks, I had a very low-key after-school job in my mum's hairdressing salon, and I spent a lot of time watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Dawson's Creek. Yeah, I know, what a contradiction. But they were right. I wasn't doing anything that was out of the ordinary at all. I wasn't doing anything that could be considered an achievement if you took disability out of the equation. Years later, I was on my second teaching round in a Melbourne high school, and I was about 20 minutes into a Year 11 legal studies class when this boy put up his hand and said, "Hey, miss, when are you going to start doing your speech?" And I said, "What speech?" I'd been talking to them about defamation law for a good 20 minutes. And he said, like your motivational speaking. When people in wheelchairs come to school, they usually say, like, inspirational stuff. It's usually in the big hall. And that's when it dawned on me. This kid had only ever experienced disabled people as objects of inspiration. We are not, to this kid, and it's not his fault. I mean, that's true for many of us. For lots of us, disabled people are not our teachers or our doctors or our manicurists. We're not real people. We are there to inspire. And in fact, I'm sitting on this stage looking like I do in this wheelchair, and you are probably kind of expecting me to inspire you, right? Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you dramatically. I am not here to inspire you. I'm here to tell you that we have been lied to about disability. Yeah, we've been sold the lie that disability is a bad thing. Capital B, capital T. It's a bad thing. And to live with disability makes you exceptional. It's not a bad thing, and it doesn't make you exceptional. And in the past few years, we've been able to propagate this lie even further via social media. You know, you may have seen images like this one. The only disability in life is a bad attitude. Or this one, your excuse is invalid, indeed. Or this one, before you quit, try. Yeah. These are just a couple of examples, but there are a lot of these images out there. You know, you might have seen the one, the little girl with no hands, drawing a picture with a pencil held in her mouth. You might have seen a child running on carbon fibre prosthetic legs. And these images, you know, there are lots of them out there. They are what we call inspiration porn. And I use the term porn deliberately because they objectify one group of people for the benefit of another group of people. So in this case, we're objectifying disabled people for the benefit of non-disabled people. The purpose of these images is to inspire you, to motivate you, so that we can look at them and think, well, however bad my life is, it could be worse. I could be that person. But what if you are that person? I've lost count of the number of times that I've been approached by strangers wanting to tell me that they think I'm brave or inspirational. And this was long before my work had any kind of public profile. They were just kind of congratulating me for managing to get up in the morning and remember my own name. And it is objectifying. These images objectify disabled people for the benefit of non-disabled people. You know, they are there so that you can look at them and think that things aren't so bad for you, to put your worries into perspective. And life as a disabled person is actually somewhat difficult. We do overcome some things, but the things that we're overcoming are not the things that you think they are. They are not things to do with our bodies. I use the term disabled people quite deliberately because I subscribe to what's called the social model of disability, which tells us that we are more disabled by our bodies, the society that we live in rather, than by our bodies and our diagnoses. So I've lived in this body a long time. I'm quite fond of it. It does the things that I need it to do, and I've learnt to use it to the best of its capacity, just as you have. And that's the thing about those kids in those pictures as well. They're not doing anything out of the ordinary. They are just using their bodies to the best of their capacity. So is it really fair to objectify them in the way that we do, to share those images? People, when they say, you know, you're an inspiration, they mean it as a compliment. They mean it as a compliment. And I know why it happens. It's because of the lie. It's because we've been sold this lie that disability makes you exceptional. And it honestly doesn't. And I know what you're thinking. You know, I'm up here bagging out inspiration. You're thinking, geez, Stella, aren't you inspired sometimes by some things? And the thing is, I am. I learn from other disabled people all the time. I'm learning not that I'm luckier than them, though. I am learning that it's a genius idea to use a pair of barbecue tongs to pick up things that you drop. I'm learning that nifty trick where you can charge your mobile phone battery from your chair battery. Genius. We are learning from each other strength and endurance, not against our bodies and our diagnoses, but against a world that exceptionalizes and objectifies us. I really think that this lie that we've been sold about disability is the greatest injustice. It makes life hard for us. And that quote, the only disability in life is a bad attitude, the reason that that's bullshit is because it's just not true. Because of the social model of disability, you know, no amount of Smiling at a flight of stairs has ever made it turn into a row. Never. You know, smiling at a television screen isn't going to make closed captions appear for people who are deaf. You know, no amount of standing in the middle of a bookshop and radiating a positive attitude is going to turn all those books into Braille. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I really want to live in a world where disability is not the exception but the norm. I want to live in a world where a 15-year-old girl sitting in her bedroom watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer isn't referred to as achieving anything because she's doing it sitting down. I want to live in a world where we don't have such low expectations of disabled people that we are congratulated for getting out of bed and remembering our own names in the morning. I want to live in a world where we value genuine achievement for disabled people. And I want to live in a world where a kid in year 11 in a Melbourne high school is not one bit surprised that his new teacher is a wheelchair user. Disability doesn't make you exceptional, but questioning what you think you know about it does. Thank you.
Yeah, so disabled people cannot perform the same task as the non-disabled, and so when they do something extraordinary, we praise them for doing that. Actually, we praise them and we are excluding them from the society because of their disability. Uh, and we are not supposed to see them as our inspiration. If we see them as our inspiration, again we are excluding them from the society. So it is their actions and attitude are what is inspiring and not their disability. Thank you.
I think Bhuvanesh has not joined. Bhuvanesh, are you there?
So, thank you very much for that very inspiring presentation. And it was also a precise one, but it had all the contents. Fine. We are moving on to the second presentation
So I think
that
he's
shall
not.
be made by.
Just check if he's there. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Bhuvanesh, are you there?
Yes, madam. Yes, madam.
I think Bhuvanesh hasn't come. He texted saying he's
Okay.
having some connectivity issues because it's raining
Okay.
where he is.
Okay.
He's usually punctual, but
Okay. That doesn't matter, madam.
yeah. So I think Bhuvanesh is not around. He's not.
Okay.
He's not in the meeting.
If you have some questions or queries
Yes,
with
we can
regards
do.
to the presentation, the floor is open for any kind of clarifications that is required in this topic. So to begin with, the presenter itself can answer my question, because in my thesis I have never used a single word as disabled, and I have used a paradigm shift from disabled to differently abled. What is your take on that? If you could please comment over. I think that I was audible to you.
Yes.
Can you repeat what you said, sir?
Yes, I can repeat. So, my PhD thesis, which was also regarding the disability study, the memoirs written by the differently abled people, I intentionally avoided the term disabled, and I used a different term, which is also a paradigm shift that has happened because of the socio-cultural aspects as differently abled. So, what is your take on that? Do you agree to that, or do you have any kind of limitations? Okay, so if possible, can you please add on to?
Abisha, can you answer for this?
Yeah, yes, I can answer. Actually, using differently abled is much better than using disabled or disability. I have used it in my PPT as disabled. It is because I tried to change it later. I forgot. But in the heading, I have given objectification of the differently abled. Uh, I'm much okay with differently abled, and it sounds good also. Sir,
That's a
Yes,
good
thank you for that
question,
answer.
sir. That's a good question, good answer, Abisha. But it's just also, since I also want to learn about this, but the field of study is still known as disability studies, right? So has there been any change in nomenclature there?
So the research scholars try to answer it. I will comment in the last, but I think that if possible, if anybody is able to add to what they have in their own mind.
Abisha, can you answer?
I I I feel it is good to use differently able because it sounds good. It doesn't hurt people. When we say disabled, it I think it will insult them. When we see a person and say, "Oh, this person is disabled," it will insult them naturally. But when we say they are differently abled, I think it sounds good and it is not going to
What
insult
ma'am
them in
asked
any way.
is there any change in the nomenclature? Because we
Uh,
call the study as disability studies
Disability
only,
studies, yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
we use the term differently able to describe them. Even very recently, I come across a word called specially abled. So
Yes,
apart from differently able, we have another term to describe them, specially abled. But when it comes to studying them, it's still quoted as disability studies. Ma'am
yes.
asked whether there is any change in the nomenclature in the
I don't
disability.
think so that there is a change. I don't think so. There's not a change.
Thank you, Abisha.
Even I was searching for that. There is not a change.
Thank you, Abisha.
Thank you, ma'am.
Are there any questions?
Madam, if you could, if you please allow me, if you please allow me to just comment on that.
Sure,
Shall I do,
sir.
madam?
Sure, sir. Yes, sir. My
The
pleasure,
power
sir.
of definition is the power of any definition is exercised and experienced. So the disabled, it is a biological category, like the belief, or take for instance, black is a biological category. Okay, it masks the social functions and injustices that underlie the assignment of people in these groups. So I would like to say that there is a contentious, it is a contentious political issue. It is a political issue also. So what we can do is we must have a clarifying understanding of disability. Disability and identifying individuals as disabled. These two issues are also social practices that involve the unequal exercise of power. The unequal exercise of power. And it also has a major economic, social, and psychological consequences in some people's lives. So this is what I think about the paradigm shift that has happened all through these ages. Then coming to the present context of specially able, it's also a better term. But these terms are all uncodified. That codification hasn't happened. Take, for example, a blind child who comes to a class. Though there is some kind of change in our mindset, still there is a stigma which we will have to underlie to the concept of stigma. It is not only about the stigma that is to be addressed, it is about the lacks, the damages, the liabilities, which all are interwoven with the word disability or blindness or numbness or lameness, everything, anything of that sort. So it is the onlooker's mind that will have to change. Let's hope that changes. And there is a huge change already taken place. So that is what the comment that I wanted to humbly present before this elite audience. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Abisha, for your great presentation. Thank you, sir, for chairing this session. Your comment on disability studies is great, and you have got a good understanding about it. And we are happy to have you today for chairing the session, sir. To show our respect to the people who served differently abled people, who themselves are differently able and conquered the life and are trying to empower other differently abled people, a Department of English, Queen Mary's College, recognized the service of Dr. Sivaraman, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Presidency College, Professor Gandhi, retired professor from Queen Mary's College, Department of English, and Ms. Smita, alumna of Queen Mary's College, and Mrs. Jayashree, librarian, Queen Mary's College. And they were all felicitated and honored today in Queen Mary's College. A presentation on this will be shared now. Is the presentation ready, ma'am?
Yeah, 2 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
It's ready. Nancy will screen it.
Priti madam.
Yes, sir. The PPT is coming now. Just a moment. Sir,
Okay.
actually, I would be grateful to you, sir, if you can list some books that people can read on disability studies, because I don't have any expertise in this area to guide our students who are present here. So just a few titles that you can mention.
Madam, I shall do that.
Yes.
If you can give me just 2 or 3 minutes,
Sure.
I will list them.
Sure, sir.
Okay. Madam, shall I begin my list of books?
Yes, sir. Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. So, with respect and due respect to all the differently able people, I would just like to uh, list out some of the most important texts that we will have to read when we do our research works. The first one is with regards to the Handbook of Disability Studies. You have the fourth edition very much available. It is an edited version. The editors are G.L. Albrecht, Albrecht, then K.D. Seelman and M. Burry, B-U-R-Y. So this can be considered as a seminal text that can give you multitudes of dimensions to explore in this present context of disability studies. So this is the Handbook of Disability Studies. It's more than around 5,000 pages. Very voluminous book, but printed very beautifully. It's much readable also. Next one is C. Burns, B-A-R-N-E-S. Burns. It's written by C. Burns. The title of the book is Disability itself. And he has also co-authored another book titled as Disability Studies. When you just type Burns, you will have multiple results in Google. Next is a very interesting person, Michel Berube, B-E-R-U-B-E. He is a father of a child who is an exceptional child, and his name is A Father, A Family, and an Exceptional Child. A Father, A Family, and Exceptional Child. Then moving forward, it's the Disability Reader, Social Science Perspective. It is edited by Tom Shakespeare. He is also a father of a differently abled child. Then you have yet another significant book that you must all know, the illness narratives, the life narratives of differently abled people. It's all codified, categorically presented in the text. The text name is Signifying Bodies, Disability in Contemporary Life Writing. The author is Thomas Cursor. Then yet another writer is L.J. Davis. He has written many books. That is, the first one is Enforcing Normancy, The Disability Reader, Bending Over Backwards. So Leonard J. Davis, he is considered as the father of disability studies. His text you can refer. So these are the couple of texts that comes to my mind all of a sudden when Preeti Madam has just made me to answer. So I think that this would be of good use. Thank you, Madam.
Sir, I have one question.
Okay.
With my limited exposure to disability studies,
Okay,
I think we see mostly it's about life stories.
Okay.
If you look at it from the literature perspective, does
Okay.
disability studies look at other genres like theater,
Yes,
poetry.
madam, if I am permitted, I'll
Yes,
be able
please.
to give you two or three examples.
Please,
Take
sir,
for
the floor is
example,
yours.
Shakespeare. The Shakespeare studies explode into disability studies. Many characters in Shakespeare. Richard III is a good example, who is a differently abled character. But the characterization is certainly negative in the sense that he has some malicious intentions. That might be true, but Shakespeare has also presented with regards to literature. When you come to cinema, right from the Tamil film Anjali, you can find that the differently abled nature has been explored well. Now coming to paintings, disability studies is getting into the new form of artistry, and what not. So that doesn't, it is limitless. The writings. What I contended in my thesis was that the oral narratives, a person who is unable to speak or write, he uses yet another mode of communication. That oral narrative is to be considered as a text, and that oral narrative is something much worthier than the text that comes in black and white. So that was one of my contentions. I think that I have attempted to answer you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Madam, should I continue in this meeting, or the rest of the things are unofficial
If
things? I don't
anybody
know.
else has any questions, you can answer. Then we can wind up with the PPT now. This is going to take only 2 minutes. PPT is ready. If you can stay with us for 5 minutes, we'd be grateful. Nancy? If it's okay.
Okay, madam. Okay, madam. Okay.
Having idea about Inspire, whom you would have seen in the PPT there, she's battled multiple sclerosis. She was our student, and in her third year, she got multiple sclerosis, and then she slowly she took a few years to complete BA, MA, and then she's done MPhil. Now she's an activist for the rights of the disabled. So in her speech, Smita referred to disability as not being a physical condition. Disability she took in a metaphorical sense also. Like, your disability could be financial, any handicap. So she put it all on the same plank. So whether it is a physical condition or whether it's a state of it's a financial state or economic condition, or whether it is some other setback, generally any kind of setback. She equated it with any kind of setback or any kind of handicap in life. And she said that whatever it be, she said, now I had to battle physical disability, but people like you who are apparently whole, you may be having some other kind of setback. So what we have to reach as a point of acceptance. So she was talking about how she was able to build her life after reaching a point of acceptance. So I do think that nomenclature. See, we used to use the word handicapped. We from there we moved to differently abled, and then we said special people. Change of nomenclature is a reflection of change in attitude. I agree, but the change of nomenclature is sometimes it to be uh, to be a little, I could be wrong, but change of nomenclature is sometimes very superficial. It is a very superficial thing, because a reality, a setback is a setback, whether it is physical or whether it is uh, otherwise, it is emotional or financial or whatever. So the way, see, for example, there are many words which have both a literal and a metaphorical meaning. For example, colonization is something that took place, whites colonizing. But there are people whose mentality is colonial. You know, they take over space, they are strategic, they are dominating. So even in even though it is not a socio-historical context, you can call a person a colonizer. So in this metaphorical sense, disability is disability, a handicap is a handicap, and playing around with nomenclature, uh, how much does it help? So I have, I mean, these are both comments and questions.
Thank you, ma'am. We have come to the end of the session.
I
I
think,
think we can.
yeah, we can ask sir to answer this, Narmada. That's what I meant.
Okay, ma'am.
Dr. Jehangir?
Madam,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Did you hear? Were you able to hear what I said?
madam's sound has some technical hitch
Oh, you
for me,
couldn't get what
but
I
I was
said.
able to hear. I was able to hear the colonization effect, all those things, but the final sentence I was unable to hear.
The final sentence is, uh, playing around with nomenclature. How much does it help? Because disability is a reality, and that disability could be both physical and metaphorical. I could be emotionally handicapped, and that is very much like the feeling of a person who is physically handicapped. I so I'm just referring to the metaphorical thing. So I just wonder whether trying not to call it disability studies is in any way helpful.
Madam, it all depends. Your term metaphorical, that itself gives everything very essence. Take for example, I'm sorry, my mic gone muted. Okay.
Okay.
I said I was unable to be heard. Okay, I shall continue. The thing is, Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis. Take for example Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis. What happens there? He is totally disabled in every sense. His mindset has been lost. He is psychologically in psychological affray. I can say that it's a psychological affray that has happened to him. So, what I feel is just to naming doesn't matter. Okay. So I won't be able to answer to that question offhand. It all depends upon the psychological aspect of the onlooker, madam. That would be a better comment on my part to make.
Yes, sir. I would like to say if we are looking at, for example, we need better to call a spade a spade. If we call study of caste, we have to call it study of caste. We call or caste discrimination. We can't call it something else.
That of course,
So
very much true. Very,
yes.
very true.
Ah. So if I
Emphatically.
because if I say disability, it's a good starting point because under that I'm only going to learn how to navigate disability. If I, so I think we can leave it open ended. It's not right for me to impose any conclusion, but as you said, we can problematize this, and we can not be hesitant to call the field of study disability studies. That's my take. I think we need not get confused between what the field is called and our respect for people who are differently abled. Well, I think just I shouldn't say more on the matter. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir, for your comments and remarks on this topic. We have come to the end of the discussion, and we can conclude the session with a thanking note. I request Mrs. Nancy, President of In Tandem Research Club and Research Scholar, to share her words of gratitude.
Thank you, Narmata. I am really gratified for giving me this opportunity to deliver the vote of thanks. First of all, my sincere thanks to Almighty for giving us courage and spirit to arrange this glorified function. His blessings has turned this event into a grand success. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our respected principal, Dr. Uma Maheshwari, for motivating and guiding us in all the endeavors of the department. A special thanks to our chairperson, Dr. Jehangir, for chairing and sharing his view on disability studies. My sincere thanks to Ms. Abisha for inspiring us with a broad view on disability studies. I thank Dr. Vinita Francis, Assistant Professor and Organizing Secretary of all the club activities, for her meticulous planning of all the clubs and for preparing this PPT of the forenoon session. My special thanks to Dr. Rufus, patron of In Tandem, for guiding us in Tandem. A heartfelt thanks to Dr. Maria Priti Srinivasan, Head of the Department of English, for believing, inspiring, and molding the scholars through In Tandem. I thank all the faculty members of Queen College and other colleges for their continuous support. I thank all the research scholars for their wonderful contribution, and a special thanks to Narmata, Organizing Secretary of In Tandem, for comparing this event. Thank you all.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Vidhi madam, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good night.
Good night. Abisha, thank you for that wonderful paper, Abisha. Very well done. Okay. Abisha, are you there? Okay, thank you, friends. We can sign out. Thank you for joining us today.